Okay, welcome back. Still in intro mode before we get into the heavy stuff. I'm trying to let you guys see what's going on, and then we'll dig deeper. What we're gonna get into today. First, we have to say, in order for you guys to keep track with us, you need to get that thumb drive. Thumb drive is $25 until January 1st. January 1st is going to be $32. It's be 11 plus gigabytes, 11 gigabytes plus of documentation, information, videos, audio, pictures, documents, forms. It's going to be all types of things on there that we're going to be using. So the whole purpose of this is Silent Aggression, hosted by El Gone, which is me. And the whole deal here is to move us all forward as friends, family, and foes into the new millennia as things change, that we need to also recognize where we are starting from and recognize that we need to make some adjustments in order for us to make it through this web that they've built for us. So, with that being said, uh, I wanted to get into this right here. We've been talking about so far with all the intro, we kind of leading up to talking about what the where we are here in North America, what's going on with the governing force. Then we get into now we're going to slowly move over into some of the remedies and some of the situations that we find ourselves in. So I decided to make this one about authorized representatives, and then we'll go to the next phase just to get a acquaintance on express trust and corporations. So since we've been talking about the United States as a corporation and what exactly is that, and then we talked about trust. Remember over there we had talked about trust over here. Uh, you know, we had it up in there. I'm not going to find it again. I mean, I can find it, but if you looked at the last video, you know what we're talking about. We can go back to it, but it's not an express trust, but that's a little different. That's just all multiple types of trust. But we're just talking about a trust in general, just giving you understanding about trust. And so we're not going to go too deep. That'll be further in the other further in the other reports, that we'll get into a trust and talk about trust and use some examples of trust, and some real live examples of trust that you actually can look at on your own, especially those who own homes or have any type of contract dealing with a trust, or any, as you know, we talked about before, what we talk about negotiable debt instruments. Okay, that's what all this is all about. All right, so let's get into this right quick, and let's see what we can do with this here. Now, this is from the Wise Concise Trustee Handbook. You can get that book. You don't have to get it from the thumb drive. All this information is on the thumb drive. It's a 79-page book. You can get it yourself, which I recommend you do, or it's a part of the book material that's on the thumb drive that you can get from Moorish Traveler, Moorish, Moorish Traveler, TRAVLER at gmail.com. You send an email to that. We'll work out how we get the gift of the $25 for the thumb drive. The information is free. You can gather this information anywhere. You just have to know where, and that's up to you to research that. But all this information we have is on the thumb drive. It's called Raw Info, which is a part of this series of uh, Silent Aggression. Raw Info by 5D World Media and Omni World FLIX. Was it Omniverse FLIX? Yeah, it's new. Still getting that going. Need some assistance, so you guys reach out. Um, we have some servers coming up that we'll be holding live action on for the classes, but I need to get at least 25 people. Uh, I can do less than that, but I like to do more than that so we can get a real consensus on getting moving through. And so the objective is moving through the system of these reports, classes, as some might call them, in order for us to get into this debt issue that we have and how we can work around lessening some of the blows and try to dig ourselves out a little bit of digging ourselves out a little bit of this. All right, let's go into this. As you can see, there's some other good stuff in there. The independent, non-preventable acts of co-trustees of which he had no prior knowledge, acts of his agents when properly contracted, taxes on income of the trust, and lawsuits against the trust. There's a lot of good stuff that's in here. Uh, but we're going to deal with this first. Authorized representatives. Let's get closer up on it. All right, one more. Okay. As shown above, it is well within the power, discretion, and oftentimes duty to contract an authorized representative. Remember, we said authorized representative came up somewhere else in some of the other earlier uh, intro uh, video. Authorized representative. Yeah. Managing agent or attorney, in fact. I had to deal with some of this on some of the mortgage things that's going on. To deal with certain affairs of the trust and the basic rule which courts of equity, and that's something you got to look at, equity. It ain't just about how much money you're making off of your mortgage loan that they told you about. It's something else. Equity don't have anything to do with that. That's just another word of make some money, getting you another loan, or the value of the property go up so you can go in and get some money. But equity actually has something to do with the usage. And so courts of equity, we're not talking. Try not to get too deep off into it yet. We need to wait to get into the class. But anyway, as a basic rule, courts of equity have laid down, and the basic rule which courts of equity have laid down is that a trustee may contract such agents to handle all affairs which require no discretion, be they ministerial or not, and he may not delegate the essential part of the power unless, of course, he's permitted to do so by the trust instrument. Trust instrument. Remember, we've been talking about instruments. 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 Trust instrument. This is debt instruments. Okay? In clarifying the discretionary power rule, it must be noted that there is no law against delegating discretionary powers to agents. So you got to understand what agents are, right? We think they are, right? Police agent, agent, FBI, all that kind of thing. No, agent just a representative. Representative, someone that sent them. You have somebody come over to your house talking about, hemming you up for some reason. That's an agent because somebody else sent them, unless they came themselves. The rule is simply that a trustee who does so at his own peril. So, in clarifying discretionary power rule, it must be noted that there is no law against delegating discretionary powers to agents. The rule is that a trustee who does so at his own peril, for he is liable for all losses generated by the agent, if any. To clarify what constitutes the essential and unessential parts of a power, the essential part is defined as the exercise of discretion, the determining of needs of the trust, or the appropriateness of action. The unessential part is that not requiring the exercise of discretion, etc., etc. However, there is a simple solution allowing for greater flexibility in this rule. The solution is to authorize the agent to contract on behalf of the trust, subject to the assent of the trustee or the assent of the trustee. And noted in the previous section, if the trust instrument makes provisions for the contracting of an authorized representative, then the trustee cannot be liable for his acts. Now, the method for contracting such agents may be either by formal appointment of mandated by the trust instrument or by execution of a limited power of attorney, letter of authorization, or even certificate of verbal authorization documented by minutes of a meeting. The most effective, secure method of contracting such an agent would obviously be an actual appointment with a written contract setting forth the specifics of the position. But a letter of introduction is, for the most purposes, sufficient, and is a simple power of attorney when the agent is acting specifically under the title of attorney in fact. Okay, attorney in fact. Okay, gonna have some buzzing. Unfortunately, I have to because we got to finish this segment. It's gonna be real irritating, but we got to finish it. Okay, an express trust versus corporation. First, I must clarify, though I am referring primarily to corporations, included in the reference are all organizations which owe their existence to legislative acts, not limited to limited liability companies, limited partnership agencies, associations, etc. Though not classified as corporations, they avail themselves of benefits, privileges, and franchises of the state for which their very creation exists. Second, since we have already shown the distinct judicial, I can't talk anyway, personality of the trust as a legal entity, we will not re-examine it until we consider its personality under Roman civil law of the 14th Amendment later in this section. But it must be noted that well-settled law that express trust is lawful, legal, valid business organization, and right to hold property and sue in its business name. And it uses a modern business have some of their strongest roots in England, Germany, and many of the United States, where it has been recognized for superiority and even praised by such notable authorities as the Ohio Supreme Court for its effectiveness in the business of life insurance. The declaration of trust has been led to be an effective substitute for incorporation. For its many advantages, which will undoubtedly shine through the reader by the following table. I have prepared this table based upon the work by John H. Sears, who, after discussing the impact of the twin landmark cases on the grave lack of profitability of using corporations for inter alia dealing with real estate, went to task outlining the distinct benefits of express trust. The works by William C. Dunn, Guy A. Thompson, Sidney R. Wrightington are cited as well, Mr. Sears says. Now, I'm not going to get into that. Express trust, you got to see that through you can read that on your own. But here it says, governed under equity law, trust law is the most well-settled body of law in America. Express trust. Corporation governed under statute, forever changing according to political agendas and schemes. Express trust. Trustees are sole authority except where delegates to agents or board of directors. Board of directors are managers with limited defined powers to conduct business, hold regular meetings, and etc. Express trust trustees afforded more leverage and powers are generally broader than corporate officers. Law provides that whenever any individual may lawfully do, the trust can do. The sky, nature, is the limit. Relative broad powers such as withholding companies, but corporations may not do whatever any individual may lawfully do. They can only do what what is legal. The statute legislated is the limit. Trustees' liability is limited by trust instruments and by signing on all contracting instruments. Remember Boyd and Silverthorne, trustees not subject to subpoena. Corporate officers personally liable to legislator and to creditors for all ambiguous endorsements. Remember, Aaron and Global Crossing cannot escape service or process. So we won't get all into that because we can go further down. It goes some of your bibliography, some of your footnotes. It gets more into the corporate and the trust line up there. But what I'm going through here with you guys, and what I'm saying is about trust and what we're talking about here, authorized representatives, and it goes back to some of the things we've been talking about before. We're talking about negotiable instruments. We're talking about republics and democracies. Okay, corporation. Okay, the Constitution, the internal powers that supposed to be the United States, and how that affects you. Okay, so a trustee, remember they just talked about in one of the documents we took a look at on the last video, and it talked about being a trustee for a bankrupt nation. Okay, I mean, and so here we go. We talked about trustees, so you kind of get a slight idea about trustee. Authorized representative, because they're authorized themselves, but you have to authorize the authorized representative for yourself. Again, we get further into that in class. Let's see if an introduction. This handbook is about the administration of express trust created under the original American common law and functioning within the unique system of commerce in the American states, the general law merchant, as it stands in 21st century America. So what this is telling you, this is some of the information that they said that they set up. Remember, we were reading off on some of the constitutional, how some of the stuff was set in motion and specifically designed to get us caught up. Well, some of this material is some of the thoughts on how they maneuver these designs of these documents, and a lot of it is not necessarily directly at us, but it affects us because we don't know what's going on, so you don't counter any of the moves that are being made against you, whether it's you specifically or as a group or as a community. So you don't know that someone's sitting up, doing things, like putting a trust together, and this trust is going to be, like they talked about when we had looked up. We were talking about what did it say, joint trust, that made it illegal for anyone else to do that. They was talking about a trust. So that's the reason why I pulled this in, so we can kind of get an idea or start bouncing off of things that they're talking about. Okay, so the material presented herein has been reduced from various sources, which the reader is encouraged to examine for his own knowledge and further understanding. The material has been rendered into a concise handbook format intended to allow the reader to refer to each section for guidance on decisions regarding the most pertinent aspects of the administration of an express trust. So only secondary attention has been given to all other matters. All in all, the author's objective by this handbook is to devise a simple guide with clearly outlined methods and sample forms for the effective handling of affairs of an express trust, while also showing the many options for growth and prosperity and profound protections afforded by express trust when created and administered properly. This book is written in somewhat unconventional manner in order to accommodate this objective. The reader should find, after examining the sources, that this work has failed in its objective. Then let the attribute it to the fault of the author, not to any supposed fault of the sources or the express trust itself. It will be admitted by all honest and learned lawyers, as once it was when a lawyer by definition was learned in the law, that an express trust, especially one created with proper care to its instruments, is a far superior form of security organization in general for individuals who desire to exercise their natural rights. First, it must be understood that any trust, regardless of the many designations applied to them, is in most basic sense a property interest held by one person, the trustee, at the request of another, the settlor, for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. The classification applied to a trust is based primarily upon the mode of creation in which it may be created, either by act of a party or by operation of the law. In the case of the former, trusts are divided into two types: expressed or implied. Without getting to the various subclasses of express and implied trust, the basic difference between one created by express act of a party and one created by implied act of a party is that the former is stated fully in language, oral or written, while the latter is inferred solely from the conduct of the parties. So, you have an implied trust because you are not claiming the things that you're supposed to be claiming. And that's all I have to say. I mean, you can get further deeper, and we will, but not on the intro. Alright, so I'm trying to get you to see where you are and where you need to be and what's going on. And this is good for all of us, and we all should be getting this information together. But since we weren't given this information, we're behind the 8 ball. But we're going to go through the structure, and we're going to get an understanding, and then we're going to silently aggress those who've been aggressing us. Alright, so as we do it, you know how that goes. We're gonna stop recording.